Today, let's thrift this silk scarf into an amazing blouse perfect for work. Welcome, I do sewing and DIY related content, and today we are going to be taking this scarf and turning it into a blouse very similar to this one that I have here. And as you can see, it is the silk blouse where it almost looks like they just had two different silk scarves and they sewed them together. And that's what I wanted to try to do with the scarf that I got. I got a large box of these scarves. They were from a family member. It means a lot to me, so I want to figure out something to do with them. And I'm going to start with this one to see if it works as a test. Now, as you can see, this scarf is see-through, so I am going to have to add some fabric behind it. So my choices were a white fabric or a black fabric. That's what I had on hand. And from looking at it, I'm pretty sure I'm going to go with the black fabric. I think it's going to make the pattern stand out a little nicer and give it a little bit of a better feel overall. And that's actually the one I have the most of. So I think it's going to work really well for this purpose. So now it is time just to start cutting everything out into a square so that we can actually begin on the construction of the shirt. So first step was I laid out my scarf on top of the black fabric so that I can have the black be the backing for the scarf itself. So again, this would have been see-through if I didn't have this, and while that could have worked for some styles, I really wanted to make sure that this shirt could be fully worn, did not need to wear anything under it as far as an extra shirt. Then I cut out a matching square for the back. Now though, it is time to finish off our seams, and the way that I'm going to do that is I'm actually going to be using my serger and just doing a very narrow rolled hem all the way around. That is going to be connecting that black fabric and my scarf together, and I'm just going to pin this up, and then I'm going to do that exact same process all the way around. So just pinning, or you could use quilting clips as I did here, so that I can then take that seam for my scarf so I can connect it and finish off the edges, as well as finishing off the edges for the backing for our blouse using that rolled hem effect. And this is exactly what the other shirt that I'm kind of mimicking all this off of did. So I think it'll be really good to make sure that they are following the same technique so that they can kind of look as similar as possible to each other. So as you can see, I am just going around now using my quilting clips, making sure everything is laying flat and smooth with that piece of black fabric on the back and the scarf. Now I have my serger set up, I have my 3 threads going, I have adjusted my tension. There's a whole video that I've done on this in case you are interested in this technique. I have it set to the rolled hem, and then I have changed the tension knob back here as well. But I will link that other video in case you're interested and you want to learn more. Now though, all I did was just go through and take that rolled hem on all 4 edges. So I started off with the backing as I thought that would be the easiest since it was only one piece of material that I had to go through. And then I repeated this for the front of the shirt as well. Now when I got down to the corner, as this was technically a square, as you can see, I used my serger to get as close to the edge of the fabric as I could. Then when my needle was almost there, I used the little wheel on the side of my serger to bring the needle down so that it would go into the fabric. And then very similar to how you would pivot on a sewing machine, I then just lifted the presser foot up, adjusted my fabric so that I could then continue that straight stitch that I was doing all the way down for the rolled hem. Now this is what the hem looks like when it is finished. I think it looks really nice for both the back and the front. The front turned out very well, and you can see that is now not as see-through as it was since we do have that extra fabric behind it. So now we can begin the process of actually putting the shirt together. So I have it on my dress form here. You can see that this is the front and then I have the back. And what I have done is I have just pinned them up carefully, so I need to match where the openings are for this one blouse on both of the sides of the shoulders. So on one shoulder, I'm just pinning it where it was pinned or sewn on the blouse, and then I'm just going to repeat that for the second side. Now for the seam itself, the way that the blouse had been done before was actually in this rectangle pattern. So you can see it had both these pieces, they were overlapping, and then you just took this rectangle seam. So that is what I'm going to do on either side so that I can have it be matching the original shirt. And then we will have these 2 pieces sewn up for the front and the back, and then we'll just begin working on the sides and the bottom of it. So this is what it looks like after I took that seam. I think it looks really good and I love how it's turning out. So now I'm just going to repeat this for the second side. So just very carefully taking my time, going through, sewing all the way down one side of it, and then when I get to that pin at the end, I'm just going to be pivoting my fabric so that I can then take that shorter little rectangle portion, and then I'll be sewing it down again, and then just taking this all the way around. So continuing with that pivoting and sewing to the end so that I can have both of those shoulder seams done, and it adds sort of like a nice decorative touch. Now it was time to pin up the sides, so I took the original blouse just to see how far up they pinned, and as you can see here, it looks like they just sewed up a little bit of the inside. This does have the shirt with right sides together, as you can see, as the bottom portion, that was how they did it. So now I'm just going to sew up either of those edges so that we can have it nice and clean. And essentially we will then have a shirt, and it will be time to then do the kind of finishing touches of that shearing at the bottom, as well as some of those extra little seams that they had on the sides to help bring it in. But so far nothing's too difficult with this. I think it's turning out really well. So as you can see, this is what I meant by it looks like a shirt. You could definitely wear this. It doesn't have too much shape right now, and we still have a few things to do so that, you know, the armholes aren't as big, but it is getting there. So now it is time to begin on the bottom shearing. So to do shearing, what we had to do first was create our bobbin. So for the bobbin, you have to hand wind that, and it really depends on your sewing machine what that tension is going to be. If you kind of stretch the elastic while you're doing it, or if it's just a matter of actually putting the elastic, hand winding that bobbin and getting it going. It's a lot of guessing on figuring out what your machine likes and what works for you. Then I increased the stitch length and I just began sewing. So as you can see, I'm just using that nice straight stitch, sewing all the way around where I have the regular thread as my top stitching thread, and then the bobbin is that elastic thread to help give it that shearing effect. And then I just continued this for 9 different rows. So here's what the first row looks like. I think it's so far coming together pretty well. The back looks good. The one issue that I did have, which again, this is supposed to be more of like a wearable mock-up, is that I got the wrong color elastic thread. It was supposed to be black and they sent me white, but it's totally okay. We're gonna make it work. So now I've gotten 2 of those rows done, and now it's just time to continue this process on and on and on. So the more rows you add, the more of that fun effect it's going to have. My original goal, so the shirt itself had 10 of these rows, so I wanted to do 10, but I ended up running out of elastic thread and was only able to do 9. So as you can see here was my empty elastic. This was the last elastic rounds that I was going to be able to do. It was coming together so nicely though, and I absolutely loved doing that like 1/4 inch difference between each of these rows. I think it made it turn out so nice and gave it a really pretty effect. Everything was turning out well though, and it was just time to continue shearing. And with that, my shearing part was complete on this shirt. I think it turned out so well. I think this may be one of my new favorite techniques that I've done, but I'm so happy with how the bottom looks. It came together very similar to how the original blouse looks. So as you can see on the blouse itself, now it was just time to finish up these armholes. So what they did was they actually took a seam so that the armhole portion wasn't as open. So they did about 2-3 inches of extra seam on either side. So I'm just going to do that as well to make it so that the shirt is a little bit more modest on the sides, and you don't have to worry about wearing too much underneath. So I'm now just going to go through and take that side seam for either side of the shirt to help bring it all together. And at this point, the shirt will then be complete after we do this. So now all I have to do is go through, trim up some threads, and then the blouse is complete. Here it is. I love it. I think this was such a great use of the scarf. I absolutely love the shearing effect at the bottom. I think this definitely is going to be one of my new favorite things to do. It just gives it such an easy feel and like take on and off in a great way without having to add a zipper or closure to make it more fitted. So this is what the shirt looks like on me. I'm so happy that I made this and that I have a way to use all of these scarves that I've gotten without just, you know, throwing them in a closet. I can add them to my wardrobe now in different ways. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe and tell me what you want to see next. Thanks for watching.